I've described today what the situation is. And it breaks down to how, when, what's the determining of when? When the money is running out. Because that's the logistics of warfare are then crippled when the money runs out. Therefore, you have to strike before the money runs out. The money is now running out with a hyperinflation, which is killing the money. So when is now? Huh? In the immediate vicinity of now. Where? Well, the new Balkan factor tells you how. Then you have to look at the ties and connections of various nations and national forces on the planet and these terms of reference. That tells you where, the new Balkans. Now you are able to locate the ties of and this is being done in the leading chancelleries and intelligence services of leading nations now. That's why many nations have leading forces in them which agree with me on the fact that we are in danger of an immediate outbreak of general warfare on this planet. So you can calculate this, not necessarily by looking up at a calendar and trying to put your finger on a date. Where is the pitch? Where's the pivot? The new Middle East, the new Balkans in the new Middle East. A well-known area, densely populated with U.S. and other troops. Think of the commitment of U.S. and other troops which are now committed. And think also of the irregular troops, especially. Because the irregular troops, like coming out of southern Vermont, out of Cheney and Company, that's a key factor. The entire so-called Middle East is saturated with Saudi, Israeli intelligence, and other forces which are involved in this cockpit. The war is coming down now, which means we have to stop it now. The best way to stop it is throw this son of a bitch out of the presidency. That will stop it.
Every nation of the transatlantic community is bankrupt, the system as a whole is dead, and the necessary reorganization and bankruptcy which is required to save the people will not happen with Obama in the presidency. With the disintegration of that transatlantic system, the British Empire is looking to break up that stability which does exist in the Eurasian community, which is centered around Russia and China. The goal is war, a world war including the use of nuclear weapons. A United States under an Obama presidency is building up to lead that effort. He must go now. It is clear from the happenings in Europe in the recent period that desperation and chaos has set in. Meeting after meeting, session upon session on an emergency basis, has demonstrated the political bankruptcy of every nation in the transatlantic. There is no policy solution within the framework, the rules, of the British concocted Euro system. After yet another meeting held on an emergency basis, where Papandreou was taken to the woodshed by Merkel and Sarkozy, Greece has been in a political whirlwind. Over the past 36 hours, Greece has gone from referring the bailout to the people to rescinding that referendum, and now there's been a deal brokered where Prime Minister Papandreou will step down and hand it over to a coalition government if they succeed in a vote of confidence in the parliament tomorrow, with Papandreou saying that he had made a mistake by promising a referendum in the first place. This uncertainty is typical of the European political sideshow right now. There is not a single nation in the transatlantic, and this includes our own United States, which is currently capable of committing to the necessary political decision and begin the needed bankruptcy reorganization. There is no monetary solution for this crisis, none. As it stands, what has been demonstrated by the political class of the transatlantic nations is that there is no nation which has a shred of sovereignty left. As it stands, every nation is dutifully playing out their role within the framework of the British system of financial empire. And until we in the United States find the guts to break with this system in one decisive action, we were doomed to suffer a world war from which the human species may not recover in time to deal with the looming galactic crises. In other words, we were doomed to an early extinction.
Both US and UK forces are at this moment in full-scale mobilization for a massive increase of combat presence in the entire extended Southwest Asia region. Military sources report that Obama is currently mobilizing a surge in ground troops in Kuwait, augmenting the current force of 23,000 to at least one full combat brigade. Add to this the current troop presence of 100,000 in Afghanistan on the border of both Pakistan and Iran, not to mention the stay-behind force of private contractors and intelligence operatives in Iraq. The U.S. has troops also stationed in multiple countries surrounding the Persian Gulf. In Bahrain, Marines and U.S. warships are stationed at the permanent base of the U.S. Fifth Fleet. On top of that, 3 nuclear-powered aircraft carrier groups are currently deployed in the international waters surrounding the region, 1 in the eastern Mediterranean and 2 in the Persian Gulf, all equipped with extensive missile launch systems within striking range of not only Iran and Syria, but also much of South Central Asia. Put this together with the missile launch capability of U.S. ally Israel, which is currently completing its arsenal of land-based, sea-based, and air delivery nuclear missiles. Among these is the ground-based Jericho-3, which has an intercontinental range of 4,000 to 6,000 kilometers. At the same time, Israel is expanding its nuclear-tipped cruise missile-enabled submarine fleet, purchasing 6 Dolphin-class submarines from Germany earlier this year. On top of this strike capability, the U.S. is integrating with Saudi Arabia the command over the air and missile systems for the full Gulf region in the new so-called security architecture with the other nations in the GCC: Kuwait, Bahrain, Oman, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates. And add to this the covert drone bases in the Persian Gulf and the Indian Ocean region. These new top-secret drone sites, run not by the U.S. military, but by the CIA and the Joint Special Operations Command, can reach targets stretching from the Horn of Africa to the Arabian Peninsula and all the way to Pakistan. The evidence is clear. By the sheer mass and configuration of the cumulative buildup of U.S., British, and Allied forces in this region, there is no denying that this surge in combat presence is not intended for merely an isolated strike on 1 or 2 target nations. But this is a coordinated mobilization on the largest possible military scale. The real targets in this British Obama drive for war are principally Russia and China, and implicitly the rest of Asia as well.
This is a full-scale commitment to an attack on the entire Eurasian continent. And it's a military operation with a full panoply of every kind of weapon for general warfare, essentially a nuclear warfare capability, with all components: submarines, ships, a vast accumulation of U.S. troops in that whole region, with auxiliary side in. You're looking at World War III.
Now, along with this buildup, the change in policy in the United States Navy since 2003, which was a change to an attack-ready posture, specifies that 6 of our supercarriers are to be what's called surge ready, which means ready to deploy with their accompanying strike group on 30 days' notice, with an additional 2 to be deployable within 90 days. What's being prepared in addition to what's already been deployed under President Barack Obama? Pull the plug on this presidency and we can avert this nightmare. Now, the road to peace begins with nullifying Obama's political power, but that's only a start. There is no set of treaty agreements, no arrangement within the present framework which will prevent the outbreak of a general warfare. The disintegration of the economies of the nations of the transatlantic has gone too far for that. We need an objective and a new orientation altogether. To achieve a lasting peace, we must remove the causes by which the British Empire creates the war. Humanity has more important things to worry about and solve should we break the back of the British Empire and go about our business. Now, these questions of scientific development are necessary and existential. It is by changing the rules of statecraft, directing the policy of nations to the good of mankind in practice, which will create the conditions by which the empire will have no power. This is why the British are intent on starting global war right now. And by solving the problem of empire, we can turn our attention to the real threat to the nations of the world, the threat of extinction of the human species, which would result from our neglecting to investigate and master the powers of the galaxy in which we live. Neither the problem of empire nor the galactic question can be solved with Obama controlling the U.S. presidency. If Barack Obama remains at the helm, a new world war, more terrible than anything we've seen, is assured. This President of the United States has committed war crimes while engaged in an illegal act of aggression. And he is mentally unfit for the office of the presidency by Section 4 of the 25th Amendment of the Constitution. He must go now. Reports have come in that Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Defense Minister Barak have reached a decision to launch an attack on Iran over the opposition of the heads of the intelligence and security services and the military. If this were to happen, this would quickly engulf the entirety of the new Balkans, which is the Middle East cockpit, the spark which would begin World War. There is opposition to this drive within Israel, which is an expression of the difficulties the British Empire is encountering as they move to ignite one among the numerous flashpoints for world war in the cockpit, which is the Middle East. Yesterday, Mr. LaRouche had the following to say. The British want to push Israel into this war. Many Israelis don't want to. This could jam it up. If many Israelis don't want to take the blame for it, then the action the British want becomes uncertain. At the moment, Netanyahu and Barak are trying to win over just one more member of the 8-man security cabinet to give the green light for the attack. Now, it has been reported that the heads of the Mossad and Shin Bet, the chief of staff of the Israeli Defense Force, the former head of the Mossad Mir Dagan, and former head of Shin Bet Yuval Diskin, among others, all oppose this action. Dagan and Diskin have been accused of being the source of the leak from the cabinet, and it's reported that Netanyahu has started an investigation in this regard. Now, Dagan's response to this was, "Let him indict me." Former presidential advisor Bruce Riddell, who has also served as a CIA analyst and a National Security Council staffer, has reported that the Brookings Institute had previously run a war game simulating an Israeli attack on Iran, which had concluded that a perfect strike is impossible and would place Israel in a vulnerable position and bring the United States into the fire. We have every reason to believe that the Iranians will see an Israeli attack on their nuclear facilities as a joint American-Israeli attack, and they will retaliate not only on Israeli targets, but on American targets. We are on a hair trigger for a new world war, and every day which sees Barack Obama leading the presidency, this threat only increases. He must go.